So right here we have your typical Mosin rifle. Wait, hold up. This is actually your typical Mosin rifle. This is a very weird American-made 1891 pattern.
What's up, guys? Skippy Africanus here, and today we have a rather weird rifle to take a look at. Not necessarily because of what it is, but rather because of who made it. Because, as mentioned, this rifle isn't some comm block built gun, as you typically see with Mosin. This one was made in the good old US of A, specifically by the New England Westinghouse Company. So to keep the story simple, during World War I, Russia was absolutely terrible at keeping up with its small arms supply. Fairly quickly into the war, they would start going overseas in an attempt to get practically anything they could get their hands on. They tended to get, guns that were chambered in the 7.62 by 54 millimeter cartridge, but if you could give them ammo, they would literally take anything. It's why you'd see Arasakas and Italian black powder Vetterlis getting used. And the United States was in a particularly good position for this, given their neutral stance early in the war. You know, countries like Britain and France, they may give a few guns here and there, but they have to also focus on keeping their own stockpiles good before they can just give everything out. And the United States, of course, didn't really have this problem, which would cause both Remington and New England Westinghouse to gladly start producing rifles for Russia. Now, this specific gun, as mentioned, was made by New England Westinghouse, so we'll more focus on them for the video as opposed to going into, Remington's whole story.
Now, New England Westinghouse was kind of in a good standing with the Russian government, already having been working on the railroad stuff in the country for quite some time, and would be approached by the Russians asking if they could help send a few rifles their way, which Westinghouse of course had no experience making small arms. However, they would go on to purchase both the J. Stevens Arms Company and the A.H. Fox Company, who would provide the tooling and, most importantly, the expertise on producing the rifles. Now, initially they would be met with a contract in 1915 for 1 million rifles, and should they fulfill that contract, another optional one for 800,000 rifles would be available to them. Afterwards, they would, of course, have the option for another contract to the tune of 1.8 million rifles. Now, it should be noted that these sales would actually be handled by J.P. Morgan, who was the purchasing agent for the Russian government. And in total, they would complete around 1,080,000 rifles before the Russian Revolution would kick off, and they would no longer be able to sell any more to the old Russian government. I mean, the Red Army would, of course, have taken the rest of the rifles, but they didn't exactly want to pay for them, so they would kind of just, sit in storage. Now, taking a look at the rifle, we can see a lot of differences between it and the 9130 that most guys are used to today. Now, this stuff isn't exclusive to the American-made Mosin, as these are still your standard 1891 Mosins, just made in the US. However, they are worth pointing out, as most Mosin people, are used to the 9130 pattern of Mosin, and between these two, there are quite a few differences. Things like length, style of sling swivels, and most importantly, in my opinion, the sights. As opposed to the standard flat adjustable bar on the 9130s, these feature a much more complicated, dare I say, cooler looking rear sight that has the option to be flipped up for increased ranges. Now, another thing to note is that the original measurements were not in metric, but rather arshins, which was the standard Russian unit of measurement till I believe around 1924, if I remember right. Now, on this particular example, you will notice that the markings right here are crossed out, and you can see the numbers stamped near them. And the reason for that is that this one is actually a finished capture. They would just do stuff like this going off the metric system as opposed to the Russian arshins. Though that being said, there's numbers on the right side that repeat the arshins numbers, but with like 2.5 numbers. I'm not actually sure what the deal with that is. As to my knowledge, only one side would be marked with arshins. But anyways, back to talking about these sights. Another difference between this and the 9130 that is definitely noticeable is the lack of a front sight hood, which I will say that compared to the 9130s and in general most bolt-action rifles, these sights are absolutely amazing to aim with. I'd honestly tie them with my Vetterli and how pleasant they are to use. Anyways, I think that's going to do it for this video on the American-made, specifically by New England Westinghouse, Mosin. Hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I personally enjoyed making it, and I will see y'all next time.